Okay, so you want to own a casino. Picture it. Neon lights stretching across a desert skyline. A casino floor humming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never once going dark. High rollers dropping six figures at the blackjack table, while a cocktail waitress glides by with a tray of free drinks. A business where, mathematically, the house always wins. You bought the dream. A machine that prints money every single time the dice hit the felt. That's the brochure. That's what the glossy investor deck is selling you. Here's what the deck doesn't show you. The $2.4 billion resort that opened to headlines and closed 2 years later, having never turned a single profitable quarter. The union negotiation that can shut your doors overnight. The neighboring state that legalizes gambling 18 months after you break ground, and quietly guts your customer base. And the fact that the house edge, the mathematical advantage that's supposed to make this business a sure thing, is only half the story. Casinos are one of the most misunderstood business models in America. On the outside, it looks like a machine with a guaranteed mathematical edge, printing money around the clock. On the inside, it's one of the most capital-intensive, debt-heavy regulation-choked businesses that exists, and the house edge that's supposed to make it foolproof has, historically, not stopped casino after casino from going spectacularly bankrupt. By the end of this, you'll understand why the math being in your favor doesn't automatically mean the business is. Before we get into the money, we need to draw a distinction, because casino covers several genuinely different businesses. A commercial land-based casino is a standalone gaming floor. No hotel, no resort, just slots and tables, often smaller and more regionally focused. A casino resort bundles gaming with a hotel, restaurants, entertainment venues, spas, and convention space. The Las Vegas Strip model, where gaming is just one department among many. A tribal casino, operated under U.S. tribal sovereignty agreements, plays by a different regulatory and tax structure entirely, often with far more favorable economics than commercial operators face. And an online or iGaming platform isn't a physical business at all. It's software, servers, and licensing, with a completely different cost structure built around game development, payment processing, and digital compliance rather than steel concrete and slot machines. This script focuses primarily on the commercial land-based and resort models, since those are the two paths a new physical casino owner is most likely to face, while the underlying revenue mechanics will apply, in modified form, across all four. The first number that stops most people cold is construction. A modest, standalone commercial casino, no hotel attached, typically runs $10 to $20 million to build. That's the entry-level version. The moment you add a hotel, the number jumps hard. Industry estimates put hotel construction alone at roughly $22 million on top of the base casino build. And once you're talking about a genuine destination resort, the kind with multiple towers, a full casino floor, restaurants, entertainment venues, and pool decks, construction costs routinely run into the hundreds of millions, with the largest Las Vegas-style resorts crossing well past $1 billion. Then there's the gaming floor itself. A single slot machine costs anywhere from $500 to $25,000, and a mid-sized casino floor needs hundreds of them. Table games need dealers, chips, custom felt layouts, and surveillance coverage over every single hand. Add a full security and surveillance system, required by regulators, not optional, running into the millions for a resort-scale property. And before you spend $1 on any of that, there's licensing. Gaming approval is jurisdiction-specific. Not every state allows the same casino model, and the legal path changes depending on where you are. Budget for state gaming license applications, ownership suitability reviews, background checks on every principal owner, staff licensing, and ongoing regulator reporting, a process that alone can run into the millions in legal and compliance costs before your doors ever open, and one that can also simply reject your application outright, no matter how much capital you've raised. Here's what blindsides new casino operators. A casino is one of the only businesses in America that's contractually and practically required to run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That's not a growth strategy. That's the cost structure. Staffing is the biggest recurring line item, and it's enormous. Dealers, pit bosses, surveillance operators, security, valet, housekeeping if there's a hotel attached, food and beverage staff, and a compliance team monitoring for money laundering and problem gambling around the clock. A mid-sized casino resort can easily carry a payroll in the many thousands of employees, running around the clock in 3 shifts, every single day of the year, holidays included. Then there's regulatory compliance, an ongoing cost, not a one-time fee. Casinos are required to maintain anti-money laundering programs, responsible gaming controls, and constant reporting to state gaming boards. Surveillance systems have to run continuously, recording every table and every machine, because regulators can audit footage at any time. Utilities are their own category of pain. A resort-scale property running climate control across a massive gaming floor, a hotel tower and entertainment venues, lit 24 hours a day, is one of the largest commercial utility bills in any industry. And then there's the part most people never think about: comps. Casinos typically return somewhere between 20 and 30% of a player's theoretical loss back to them in the form of free meals, hotel rooms, show tickets, or cashback. A deliberate cost built into the business model to keep high-value players coming back. It works, but it means a meaningful chunk of the revenue the house wins on the floor gets handed straight back out the door.
Here's the part that surprises people who think a casino's revenue is just gambling. It isn't. Not anymore, not for decades. The foundation is the house edge, a built-in mathematical advantage on every game, from roulette to slots to blackjack, that guarantees the casino wins a small percentage of total money wagered over a large enough number of bets. This is not luck. It's statistics playing out at scale, and it's genuinely the most reliable part of the entire business. But here's the shift that's reshaped the entire industry. Gaming revenue's share of the pie has been shrinking for 30 years. In Clark County, Nevada, home to the Las Vegas Strip, gaming accounted for roughly 60% of total casino hotel revenue in the early 1990s. By 2017, that had fallen to around 40%, with non-gaming revenue. Rooms, food, entertainment, making up the majority. Rooms are the second major layer, and hotel occupancy and average daily rates directly drive resort profitability, independent of what happens on the gaming floor. Food and beverage is the third layer. From buffets to celebrity chef restaurants, and increasingly, this is where resorts compete on prestige, not just gaming. Entertainment and retail, concerts, nightclubs, shopping promenades, and ticketed shows pull in visitors who may never place a single bet, but who still pay for parking, drinks, and merchandise. And MICE revenue, meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions keeps convention-heavy resorts busy and profitable during weekdays when leisure gambling traffic is naturally lower. A resort with all these layers working together, gaming, rooms, food, entertainment, and conventions, has a dramatically more stable business than a casino relying on the gaming floor alone. A casino betting purely on gaming revenue is betting its entire year on foot traffic and the house edge doing all the work, with nothing to fall back on when a competitor opens down the road. The house edge guarantees the casino wins on the games. It does not guarantee the business survives. One said be it, and the reason is almost always the same: leverage, competition, and fixed costs that don't care what the tables are doing. Casino resorts are built with enormous upfront capital, and that capital is almost always financed with debt. A resort that costs hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to build typically carries debt service in the tens of millions annually. A fixed cost that has to be paid whether the casino floor is packed or empty. When a heavily leveraged casino underperforms even modestly against projections, that debt service doesn't shrink. It just eats a larger and larger share of a smaller and smaller revenue base, and the math turns against the owner fast. Then there's market saturation. Historically, casino gambling was geographically scarce. A handful of states allowed it, so a casino built in one of them had a captive regional customer base. As more states legalized commercial gambling over the past 2 decades, that scarcity evaporated. A casino that opened when it was the only option within driving distance can find itself, a few years later, competing with 3 or 4 newer properties in neighboring states. Properties that didn't exist when the original business plan was written, and regulatory risk cuts both ways. A jurisdiction that grants you a license today can change tax rates, add new licensing requirements, or approve new competing licenses tomorrow. Decisions entirely outside an operator's control that can materially alter the economics of an existing property overnight. To see how this plays out in the real world, look at the Revel Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Revel broke ground just before the 2008 financial crisis and opened in 2012 as a $2.4 billion resort. At the time, the most expensive casino ever built in Atlantic City, and one of the most expensive in the country. It was positioned as the property that would revitalize a struggling gambling market, with high-end design meant to attract a younger, more upscale crowd than Atlantic City's traditional customer base. It never turned a profit, not for a single full year of operation. Analysts later pointed to a combination of bad timing, poor read on the local customer, and a financial structure that couldn't support the debt load from a $2.4 billion build. Revel filed for bankruptcy once, restructured, and filed again a second time within 2 years of opening. By September 2014, just over 2 years after its grand opening, Revel closed for good, part of a wave that saw 4 Atlantic City casinos shut down that same year alone, as the market that had supported 12 casinos could no longer support that many amid new competition from casinos opening in neighboring states. What happened next is the part that makes this a genuine cautionary tale rather than just a bad headline. A $2.4 billion casino, built 4 years earlier, sold at bankruptcy auction for $110 million, roughly 5 cents on every dollar it cost to build. The winning bidder couldn't make the property work either, and it sat closed for years, passing between owners before finally reopening in 2018 under an entirely new name and new ownership group. That's the mechanism in miniature. It wasn't bad luck at the tables. Revel's house edge worked exactly as designed on every single hand played inside it. The business failed because the capital structure underneath the casino floor, the debt, the timing, the read on the market, was quietly built to depend on assumptions that didn't hold, and no amount of mathematically guaranteed gaming revenue could outrun a $2.4 billion mistake. Here's the part that's genuinely important to understand if you're evaluating this industry. The properties that survive and thrive are not the ones with the best house edge. Every legal casino's house edge is regulated and roughly comparable within a jurisdiction. The edge is table stakes, not a competitive advantage. What actually separates winners from Revel-style failures is capital discipline, realistic market sizing, and revenue diversification. Atlantic City's remaining casinos, after the 2014 shakeout, stabilized specifically because the oversupply worked its way out of the system. Fewer competitors fighting for the same regional customer base meant the properties left standing could actually operate at healthy margin. The same reopened Revel property, rebranded as Ocean Resort Casino under new ownership with a dramatically lower basis than the original $2.4 billion build, had a real shot at profitability precisely because the new owners weren't carrying the debt load that sank the original venture. This is the pattern across the entire industry. A casino built with reasonable leverage, sized correctly for its actual regional market, and diversified across gaming, rooms, food, and entertainment tends to be a genuinely durable business. A casino built with maximum leverage, betting on being the flashiest property in a market that can't support it, is playing a much riskier game than any customer at any table inside it. The good year. You own a mid-sized regional casino resort with a diversified revenue base, gaming, a modest hotel, a couple of solid restaurants, and a small events calendar. Regional visitation is strong. No major new competitor has opened within driving distance, and your debt load is conservative relative to the property's cash flow. Gaming revenue, room revenue, and food and beverage all come in on target. Comps stay within budget because your loyalty program is well managed. You end the year with a healthy operating profit and debt service that's comfortably covered. The bad year. A new, larger resort opens 90 minutes away in a neighboring state and pulls a meaningful share of your regional customer base. Gaming revenue drops. Your fixed costs, payroll for round-the-clock staffing, utilities, surveillance and compliance systems, and debt service on the original construction loan, barely move, because none of those obligations scale down just because fewer people walked through the door. You increase comps to try to retain your best customers, which further compresses margin at the exact moment revenue is falling. If your leverage was aggressive to begin with, this is the year the math stops working, and refinancing or restructuring becomes a real conversation with your lenders. The gap between those 2 years isn't the house edge. The math on the felt is identical in both scenarios. It's leverage, competition, and how much fixed cost you built into a business that runs the same overhead, whether the floor is full or empty. So, does owning a casino actually work as a business? The honest answer is the house edge is real, and it does guarantee the casino wins on the games. But that guarantee sits on top of one of the most capital-intensive, debt-heavy, and regulation-bound business structures in America, and the gap between a well-capitalized regional operator and a $2.4 billion cautionary tale is enormous. The romance of casino ownership is the neon lights and the mathematically guaranteed edge. The mechanics underneath it are a business that has to run every hour of every day, carrying enormous fixed costs and debt service that don't care whether the tables are full. In a market where a competitor 90 minutes away can quietly reshape your entire customer base, the owners who make it work aren't the ones who bet on the flashiest resort winning. They're the ones who understood, going in, that the house edge was never the hard part of this business. The hard part was building something that could survive the years when the edge alone wasn't enough.